Welcome back to another edition of Kansas City Experience, the monthly program that pulls together a selection of segments from Kansas City PBS, Flatland, and 90.9 The Bridge. I'm Adam Haynes. The Super Bowl champion Chiefs aim to run it back as the 2020 football season is officially underway. Several beers are now available that celebrate the Chiefs' championship season. We taste a few of the contenders for Best Chiefs Brew.
All right, so a red lager. That's kind of cool. There's definitely a bready sweetness that's more prevalent than that first beer that we tried.
Speaking of football, Jason Sudeikis returns to TV screens in a new sports comedy as Ted Lasso, a Kansas football coach hired to lead a professional English soccer team. Art House's John McGrath reviews the new show.
The idea was simple. Lasso's like this intense, wild-eyed football coach from Kansas that's sent to England to coach the fictional AFC Richmond soccer team.
He must be from England, yeah? Wales. Is that another country? Yes and no. How many countries are in this country?
4.
We take a look at how two young Kansas City entrepreneurs are giving people a chance to experience life on a ranch.
A lot of people don't know about it, and so we found this little nook in Kansas City, 28 acres, and we're ready to show people what we grew up knowing and loving.
I would say if I was out in the middle of nowhere, I would not want to start a horse riding stables.
We hear about the synchronicity involved in a local man's journey to celebrate his 69th birthday.
You know what, I started college in '69, and I thought, so where am I gonna ride for 69 miles? And it just dawned on me, I'm like, I wonder how far Benedictine College is from my house in South Overland Park, Kansas, to Etchison, Kansas. So I pulled it up on GPS, 69 miles.
With music fans missing live shows, several local musicians came together for the virtual concert, KC Bands Together. We share a performance from KC jazz artist Herman Mahari. First, we share the first of a 3-part series that looks at how the history of birthing care unfolded in the U.S., how midwives and mothers of color were slowly left out, and the resurgence of midwifery's link to Kansas City.
I want you to meet Mrs. Mary Cooley, a midwife who lives in Albany, Georgia. She and thousands of other midwives all over the South have dedicated their lives to the birthing of healthy babies.
I'm gonna hold you close to my heart now, ain't that good news?
My name is Ginger Breedlove. I'm a nurse midwife who's been in a variety of practices over 40 years. That has included clinical practice for 25 years in a birthing center and hospital environment, about 10 years starting the University of Kansas midwifery education program and teaching, and then the last few years as a consultant for nurse midwives around the country. We are experts in normal, in particular helping care for women through pregnancy, during labor and birth, and postpartum. Some midwives, based on their educational pathway, do family planning, gynecology, and primary care through the lifespan. So the definition can be variable based on somebody's pathway. The affinity for midwives and doulas is growing, and part of that is women and their families wanting to be better supported, to be more engaged in decision making, to understand what consent means and how to be able to use their voice in a way that makes this experience that you don't do very many times in your life one that is as best possible what you want it to be. Midwives have had a history in our country that is rooted in immigration to the country. So we could start with really the indigenous Native Americans who practice traditional midwifery and to this day have many customs that have carried over for decades And then when enslaved women and women from Ireland came over as midwives and key community leaders that were looked up to preserve the community and make sure families had healthy births, were gradually sort of cast aside and demoralized, degraded, and removed from the practice of maternity care by the 20s and 30s.
2 days ago, a baby delivered by a midwife died when it ought to have lived. As your health officer, it was my duty to find out why that baby died.
It transitioned into birth in the hospital. And as that transition happened, there definitely was a shift in the belief of where it was safe to give birth and who attended you for the safest birth. The marginalized black and brown enslaved midwives and the Irish midwives gradually became illegal in most communities, and the event and growth of the public health system began to emerge. So the first advent of I would say, the more modern midwife that evolved in the 40s and 50s were predominantly white nurses. When we look at midwifery and racial divide, I can speak to the profession of midwifery from the association lens that I am a part of and was actually a past president of the American College of Nurse Midwives. ACNM actually formed in Kansas City in 1955, which is an interesting part of history. Prior to that, midwives were in two different organizations. There were the granny midwives and grand midwives and traditional midwives and indigenous midwives still practicing around the country. Many underground, many illegal, some legal. It depended on the states. But if you look at nurse midwifery, there was a distinction made as the civil rights movement really emerged about the black nurse midwife. And the disenfranchisement of those black midwives, nurse midwives, in the National Organization of White Midwives was definitely contentious. We find that in our history. I think it's really important that we acknowledge that those racial divides were present in our profession, and a need to talk about that. America is facing a maternal health crisis that probably was not recognized or growing recognition until about 2017.
Doctors and nurses have worked hard and successfully to reduce the U.S. infant mortality rate in recent decades. What's less known and less understood is the rise in maternal mortality, mothers dying after pregnancy or from childbirth-related causes.
Finally, there's been a wake-up call where the public and the policymakers are openly talking about this maternal health crisis. And what is the crisis? It's a disparity and inequity in health care based on that black and brown maternal mortality, dying mothers, has been rising dramatically for the last 20 years. Black and brown women are more likely to die in childbirth than their counterparts. I think there are systems that are taking a serious look at this, and I know there are others who are taking no responsibility at all. It has to come from the federal level with funding. States don't have a lot of money in their budgets, but part of that funding needs to go to communities of color, where programs can be funded adequately and designed and led by those black female leaders.
Baby Adam, come on over here and put your name on your baby's birth certificate. What you gonna call him, Adam Jr.? I reckon.
Hey guys, it's Cassie, your local beer enthusiast here, and it's time to get ready for some Kansas City Chiefs football! Or at least Chiefs beers. So I'm gonna kick off by tasting and reviewing the Kingdom Blonde Ale by Golden Road Brewing, Weston Brewing Company's Red Lager, and Worth the Wait by Boulevard Brewing Company. All right, first up, let's give that Kingdom Blonde Ale a try. This is about 4.8% blonde ale. We've got some pretty crystal clear, pale yellow action going on here. What I would expect from blonde ale. And very crisp. This beer isn't actually from Kansas City, but the makers at Golden Road Brewing are from Kansas City, so they advertise this beer as from Kansas City Chiefs fans for Kansas City Chiefs fans. So we made a little exception since they care so much about our wonderful team. Pretty effervescent, a little bit of a drier finish, but yeah, kind of just like a easy drinking, slightly sweet, clean blonde ale. It's pretty good. This is a tailgate winner, in my opinion. This is coming in at about 5.8%. That seems pretty high for I don't know, for a lager. All right, so a red lager. That's kind of cool. They just roasted the malts a little bit longer, but still did the lager process instead of the ale process. Normally we see a lot of lagers that are, you know, golden in color because they use really pale malts and it goes through and we just have that light, lagery, crisp taste. But this one, they didn't. They went a little bit further with those malts. It's giving me like some rye bread vibes because you can get the hops in there. So it gives you like a little bit of bitterness, a little bit of dryness at the end. There's definitely a bready sweetness that's more prevalent than that first beer that we tried. Yeah, it's kind of dry at first, has like a real sweet middle, and then it kind of has another dry finish at the end. So while maybe if they didn't have enough hops, I would be like, this beer is a little running on the sweet side. It keeps you coming back for more because it keeps cleaning out the sweetness with a little bit of hoppiness. So it's a cool beer. Weston, Missouri. 2 points for safety. Worth the wait. Was it worth 50 years, Kansas City? Okay, we got some clarity here, but it's a deep, dark red. And that smells super fruity and kind of like red licorice, too. Very sweet, very malty. I don't think I've ever said a beer tastes like licorice before. Not in like licorice like a fennel seed way, like Twizzlers. It's pretty sweet, pretty malty. It's not my favorite thing in the world. Can I say that? Touchdown, Kansas City! For this football season, I'm thinking you want all these beers at your tailgates, but early in the season, still kind of warm out, boom, you got your blonde ale. Starts getting chilly, that crisp breeze is coming in, we've got an October game, boom, this is your guy. Then we've got the cold December games. You're gonna want something malty, higher ABV to warm you up. Your 2020 Kansas City Chiefs starting lineup right here, baby. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and let me know what you'll be drinking when the Chiefs run it back for another championship this season. Fun fact, Kingdom Blonde Ale comes in a number 15 pack. Really should have got it from the gut.
Yeah, I really think...
I like Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and this one's Andy Reid, baby. You know what I'm saying? That's Big Red. This is a Big Red.
Hello, I'm John McGrath. I'm a producer for Flatland at Kansas City PBS, and I'm here to tell you about the new Apple Plus sports comedy show, Ted Lasso, starring Kansas City's own Jason Sudeikis.
Oi, mate, there's you.
I believe it is.
Wicked. You coaching football, you are a legend for doing something so stupid. I mean, it's mental. They're gonna murder you.
Okay, so the idea was simple. Sudeikis plays Lasso, this intense football coach that was the former coach for the Wichita State football team. And just so you know, there never was a Wichita State football team.
Good news from the other side of the Atlantic. AFC Richmond announced the hiring of their new manager, American football coach Ted Lasso.
You're an American who's now in charge of a football club despite possessing very little knowledge of the game.
And it's a continuation of the character that Sudeikis portrayed in a series of promos for NBC Sports' coverage of the Premier League.
Circle them up, have them put on their pads, and let's start playing for real. They're wearing their pads, coach.
One of the issues I've had is what tackling was.
There you go, tackle him. What the hell? That's not a tackle. It's just sliding around. Soccer tackle, sir. All right there, Gary. That's how you tackle.
In the end, it all worked. Both the promos in 2013 and 14, they went viral and they gained all kinds of tremendous attention. They have generated over 200 million views on YouTube, and it helped the network build a strong foundation for the Premier League. And he also got a nudge from his partner, Olivia Wilde, who's an actress and filmmaker in her own right. And she came up to him one day and said, you know, you should do a Ted Lasso show. And he said, I think maybe this can happen. Now, these short videos have turned into a 10-episode season on Apple Plus. And it was co-created, co-produced, and co-written by his Saturday Night alum, Bill Lawrence. The idea was simple. Lasso's like this intense, wild-eyed football coach from Kansas that's sent to England to coach the fictional AFC Richmond soccer team.
I know that AFC Richmond is going to give you everything they got, win or lose. Or tie. Right, y'all do ties here.
Basically plays a dumb football coach trying to teach soccer.
He must be from England, yeah? Wales. Is that another country? Yes and no. How many countries are in this country? 4.
Clever viewers will be able to guess whether this is whether a positive attitude and homespun wisdom helps with this fish surviving out of familiar waters.
To me, success is not about the wins and losses. It's about helping these young fellas be the best versions of themselves on and off the field.
In the end, Ted Lasso is exactly what audience need right now. It's a story that makes you laugh, less about football management and more about unity.
And I think one of the themes of the show is to, be careful with the assumptions you make about people and the ones that we make about ourselves.
So check it out. It's by Kansas City's own Jason Sudeikis. It's got tons of KC references in it, and it premieres tonight on Apple Plus TV.
I always figured that tea was just going to taste like hot brown water. And you know what? I was right. Yeah, it's horrible. No, thank you.
Welcome to England. You know, we've found ourselves as a nation where everyone kind of had to slow down a little bit and reevaluate their life. And so being able to open a place like this to where people can go learn those old school lessons and those old school experiences together, that was really important to us. So it's really exciting with the whole COVID thing. Most people are worried about it. We're really excited that we're just able to be somewhere and an opportunity to be able to have something for those folks. All right. Come on over here on this side. My name is Michael Green. I'm 26 years old, and I'm the co-owner of Walking Sea Ranch. My grandpa actually started the ranch in '89, and then my mom took it over. And then when I turned 18 years old, I went and did my own thing, so I didn't really want to return and do the ranch. When we were younger, Cody and I actually worked all the time out at the ranch, and one day we told each other we were going to own it. And the stars just kind of aligned, and at 26 years old, we're here owning the ranch now.
For me, it's seriously like living the dream. You wake up every day with energy. You're ready to go show other people the kind of culture that we grew up with and kind of took for granted until we went to college, and was like, a lot of people don't know about it. And so we found this little nook in Kansas City, 28 acres, and we're ready to show people what we grew up knowing and loving.
I would say if I was out in the middle of nowhere, I would not want to start a horse riding stables. But being this close to the city and, being able to go in this close and create culture that most of these folks have never seen, it's one of those deals where you have to see where the economy is going after we get out of this. And a lot of my mentors have taught me, in a bad economy, that's where the people strive the most if they fight for what they believe. And so we haven't really been nervous about that because we just know what we offer to the community and know what we can do even during hard times, great times, and the best times.
Every dollar we've made so far has been shoved right back into the business. So that's really one of the last things on our minds. We want this place to grow and grow and grow way before we even think about our own pockets.
We actually have our bandanas that we are excited about. We make sure everyone that's coming out, if they're indoors in the stalls, anywhere where it's closed spaces, that we require a mask. And then obviously the simple things you can use to clean all the equipment, everything like that. Being young entrepreneurs, I think the one thing that we always have to keep each other in check on is checking our egos and making sure we're not just winging it. So we have a lot of mentors in our life, previous ranch owners, horse people, and we just make sure that we're always listening and making sure that we're taking the next right step as well.
I would do this every single day for free, and we did really growing up. And so when you find something you're willing to do for free, find someone to pay you for it, and it'll all work out.
So about 4 months ago, I thought, you know what? I think I'd like to ride my age. I'm going to be 69 years old. And then I thought, you know what? I started college in '69. And I thought, so where am I going to ride for 69 miles? And it just dawned on me. I'm like, I wonder how far Benedictine College is from my house in South Overland Park, Kansas, to Atchison, Kansas. So I pulled it up on GPS, 69 miles. I thought, that's synchronicity. At 6:30 sunrise, I'm gonna get on my bike, which I've been training for 3 months, and I'm gonna ride to where I went to college, in Atchison, Kansas. I've been training, like I said, for 3 months, but I have not ridden 69 miles. My maximum's been about 42 miles in a day. So this is my equipment that I have laid out, my repair kits for any potential flat tire, flat tube. Gotta have a first aid kit in case I fall. Chapstick, gotta have chapstick. And then I'm also bringing my college ring from Benedictine College. I started there in '69, I graduated in '73, but the interesting thing about this ring is that when my wife Terry Hosty McGuire and I were engaged, we went to Florida to meet her grandparents, and this ring slipped off my finger in the Atlantic Ocean. And 8 years later, we received a phone call from a guy in Chicago who was snorkeling and found my class ring in the ocean 8 years later. Called me because my initials are on the inside, my graduation year, and of course the name of the school, found me and shipped it to me. So we have that in a little fishbowl in our basement, but I'm taking that with me too. I've been riding for quite a while. Well, to keep going on your bike is to know where you're going to end. Riding a bike is, at some points it's uphill, some points it's downhill, some points it's even Steven, and that's how life is too. In life, you don't know where the end is, generally speaking. But the older you get, the more you realize how important it is to be with family and friends and do things that you've always wanted to do.